A grieving deaf child, Noah, becomes unreachable after his mother's death. A 12-year-old boy, Jamal, who learned sign language from a friend, breaks through to him with authentic, emotionally honest signing. This catalyzes healing. Noah reconnects with his mother through saved videos. William, Noah's father, learns to communicate in sign. Patricia, Jamal's mother, becomes central to the household, and the four form a chosen family. Over time, they build advocacy and futures grounded in love, not wealth. A toy dinosaur lay on its side, mid-roar, on the carpet. The room was too quiet for a 7-year-old's playroom. Just the flicker of a fish tank, the soft whir of a purifier, and a boy in the corner shaping air like it might listen. Noah's fingers moved in bursts, then fell, then moved again. Words without sound. Pleas without witnesses. His eyes were rimmed red. The tracks on his cheeks said this wasn't the first time today. He pressed his palms to his chest as if the ache lived there. At the door, adults hovered like furniture. A nanny with the posture of apology. A therapist searching a clipboard for answers. An interpreter with precise, clipped movements that landed on the floor like coins that didn't fit the slot. Footsteps padded past them. Small ones. A boy in a school hoodie with a fraying sleeve stepped inside as if he belonged. A woman's voice hissed from the hall, "Jamal, no," but it was too late. He was kneeling. He didn't look at the adults. He looked at Noah. He set his hands down where Noah could see them. He waited. Then he breathed in, and his face did something the interpreters never did. It softened into the shape of listening. "Why does it hurt?" His hands asked, the question curved with care. Noah froze, then blinked as if he'd heard thunder underwater. His hands flared alive, fast, messy, urgent. The signs tumbled over each other, not textbook, not polite, just truth. Jamal chased them, eyes locked, nodding when he caught meaning, wincing when he didn't, asking again. At the threshold, a man in a suit stopped like he'd run into glass. William Bennett didn't recognize the boy kneeling on his carpet. He barely recognized the smaller one either. In this angle of light, his son looked like a photograph of someone else's child, shoulders pulled in tight around a language no one in the room spoke. Noah pressed both palms to his temple, then flicked them downward in a motion that felt like falling. He signed a circle near his heart, touched his chin, then drew a rectangle in the air and pointed to his eyes, begging for something invisible. Jamal's throat worked. He swallowed, looked over his shoulder where the adults waited for permission, then back to the only person who mattered. He signed slower, careful as if carrying glass. "You want to see her again?" Noah nodded so hard his hair shook. The interpreter murmured to the air, "He wants a video," as if saying it out loud made it smaller. Jamal didn't translate for the adults. He translated for the boy. "I see you," his hand said. "I'm here. Tell me everything you need." Slowly, Noah's shoulders lowered. His hands kept moving, but the panic in them softened to a tremble. He looked different now. Not fixed. Seen. William found his voice and lost it in the same breath. "Who are you?" The boy didn't turn this time. He lifted his hands again. "My name is Jamal." He shaped it across his chest, each letter a promise. Then, with a tiny, almost embarrassed half-smile meant only for Noah, "I learned how to listen." The room, for the first time in weeks, exhaled. The hallway outside smelled like lemon oil and money. Jamal had followed the sound up the marble staircase, because sound isn't just noise, it's rhythm, and grief has a rhythm you can feel in your bones. He'd heard it before, in different rooms with peeling paint and thin walls. 2 years earlier, a girl named Maya had taken the empty seat next to his at PS-17. Her hearing aids glittered like small moons. She had smiled at him with her whole face while her hands stayed still. The teacher had put a chart on the wall with shapes that were letters. Jamal had gone home and copied them by lamplight, hands clumsy, eyes stubborn. He talked with his hands to no one for weeks until the shapes began to mean. Maya taught him the rules, then helped him break them. "It's not just hands," she'd signed. "It's eyebrows. It's shoulders. It's where your eyes go when you care." Now, in a room that cost more than his building, Jamal let his shoulders speak first, low, unthreatening here. He got it wrong a dozen times in a minute and showed his mistakes like open palms. It made him human to Noah. It made him safe. From the doorway, Patricia watched with a hand clasped over her mouth. She had come for a job that made her invisible. She hadn't planned on seeing her son like this, unafraid inside a stranger's world. Fear flared anyway. Rules were loud in places like this. "Baby," she whispered when she found her voice, "we can't," but even as she said it, she saw the way Noah's hands slowed, the way his breath evened with every "yes, me too" from Jamal. William moved like a man crossing ice he didn't know how to trust. "What is he saying?" he asked the interpreter, and then, because watching Jamal ignore hierarchy was teaching him something, he asked Jamal. Jamal looked at Noah, asked with his hands if he could share. Noah nodded. "He wants videos," Jamal said, voice steady but soft, hands still moving so Noah could come with them. "Of his mom. He thinks he's forgetting her hands." The word forgetting landed in William like a dropped plate. He felt the memory of metal under his fingers, the safe dial in his office, the way he'd tucked the drive behind numbers and reports and anything that wasn't pain. He had thought he was protecting his son from falling in. He hadn't considered he was locking him out. "Where are they?" Patricia asked, startled to hear herself speak. William blinked like waking. "My office." Jamal glanced at his mother, apology already in his eyes. She shook her head once. "Don't you dare." Then she nodded. "Go." They moved as a small procession through the house that had never felt like this before, the boy in the hoodie by the billionaire's side, the housekeeper falling in step not behind but beside. At the office door, William paused. His hands hovered over the keypad, then fell. He looked at Noah and signed something that made his fingers ache with clumsiness. "Wait. Please." Noah watched, alert, wary, deciding if this man could be trusted with the door that mattered. Inside the safe, cold and orderly, a small black drive pressed against paper wealth. William picked it up like something alive. When he turned back, his son wasn't in the doorway. He was in Jamal's lap, small enough to fit, big enough to know when to hold on. "Play it," Patricia said, and for once no one corrected her. The screen lit the room like a low sunrise. Sarah appeared in soft sweater colors, hair pulled back, hands raised as if greeting an old friend at the door. She didn't look like a ghost. She looked like a person who had planned for love to outlast her body. "Hello, my brave boy," her hands said. "Watch my hands. They are yours." Jamal didn't voice the signs right away. He let the space between them be holy. William stood behind the chair, one hand on Noah's small shoulder, the other on the desk because the room was tilting. Noah leaned in so close his breath fogged the glass. His fingers twitched as if echoing hers, muscle memory waking up. He smiled and cried at the same time, the way children do when the world is too big to fit inside one feeling. William's throat wrenched around a sound he didn't recognize. He had grieved in boardrooms by pretending not to. He had grieved at 3 a.m. into a pillow because the boy down the hall needed the world to be still. He had not grieved while being watched. He did now, helplessly, for the first time in the same room as his son. Sarah signed a joke only the three of them would get. Noah laughed with no sound, a burst of light that cracked open the dark place he'd been living. Jamal's shoulders dropped. Patricia wiped her face and didn't pretend not to. The video faded to a still frame. The room tried to remember how to breathe. Noah turned, climbed off Jamal's lap, walked to his father, and signed a sentence that shook the desk. "Why did you hide her?" William reached for words and found none. He did what he'd watched Jamal do. He asked permission. "May I answer with my hands?" Noah waited. Jamal, quietly, guided William's fingers. Sore, William fumbled, looked at Jamal. Jamal signed again, slower. "Sorry." The motion drew across William's chest like a wire being pulled straight. "I was afraid. I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong." Noah stared, then reached both hands up and gathered his father's face like it might fall. He pressed their foreheads together and inhaled. Then he signed something smaller but heavier. "I hurt here." He pressed his hand to his sternum and winced. Jamal's eyes flicked to Patricia. "Chest," he said, already signing questions to Noah. "Sharp? Dull? Now? Before?" Noah's answers came fragmented but clear enough. Days. Worse with breath. Tight. The room pivoted. William's next move was clean, practiced. He hit a number no one else had, spoke in a voice that could land planes. While they waited, Jamal turned the rest of his body into questions. Where exactly? When? How much? He matched Noah's breathing with his own until the pace synced and the panic loosened its grip. The doctor swept in with instruments and efficient kindness, didn't blink at the boy translating. Anxiety can sit on the chest and pretend to be the heart, he murmured to William while listening to Noah's lungs, then louder, to Noah, eyes on Noah's face, hands open. You are safe. We will help. When the door closed again, the air changed. Jamal didn't stand up. He stayed on the floor at Noah's height because that is where truth lives for children. William sat too, suit bending where it never had to. Patricia slid down the wall and let herself be held by the paint. In the quiet after the storm, William turned to Jamal. You did something I could not. It wasn't accusation or awe. It was a map. Teach me how to be where he is. Jamal nodded. Fear flickered behind his eyes, the small, ordinary fear of getting it wrong and breaking something delicate. He swallowed it and signed anyway. We start with your face. The kitchen table became a classroom. Morning light made the wood glow, and William's hands learned to speak where spreadsheets used to live. Jamal sat across from him, a coach with dimples, a drill sergeant with patience. Patricia taught coffee to stay hot longer. Noah taught them all that laughter and sign looks like a wave you can surf. It wasn't elegant. William's fingers cramped and stuck. He forgot the difference between a question and a statement and accidentally proposed to the toaster. Jamal laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes, then showed him again, slower, the way Maya had showed him when everything mixed up at once. At night, when the house felt less like a museum, William stood in Noah's doorway and practiced silently. Good morning. Bad dream. I'm here. The first time Noah woke gasping, hands flailing in sleep, William didn't freeze. He signed with fear in his knuckles and love in his palms. Safe. Safe. I've got you. Noah's fingers unclenched like a bud remembering it could be a flower. Not everyone applauded. Caroline arrived for breakfast in heels that sounded like a clock running out. She took in the scene, the billionaire with sleeves rolled, the boy in a hoodie teaching him to shape the air, the housekeeper laughing with a mouth that had been quiet for years. Will, she said, smiling like a blade. New management style? William didn't stand. He signed to Noah first. You want to finish the joke? Noah grinned, fingers flashing, and Jamal translated, and all three laughed again before William looked at his sister. Meet Jamal. Meet Patricia. Family. Caroline's brows went up like theater curtains. The help is eating at your table now? Noah slid off his chair and signed with the righteous certainty of a 7-year-old. Jamal hesitated, then looked to William. William nodded. Jamal voiced, each word careful as a bridge. He says if you can't be kind to his family, you should go. The room waited to see if gravity still worked. Caroline's face colored. This is absurd. William shook his head. This is home. The word landed and stayed. School brought a different kind of test. A message pinged during lunch, incident. Noah, red-eyed, signed hard enough to sting. Older kids had mocked his signing, called it hearing hands, told him he was doing it wrong. Jamal's joy tightened. He remembered fists and hallways and teachers who didn't see quiet pain. He crouched until his eyes met Noah's. Different isn't wrong, he signed. It's another way to be right. Your mom's way. My way. Both live in you. William watched the 12-year-old reassemble his son in 4 sentences and felt a decision crystallize. That evening, he called them to the table with no staff, no managers, no distance. This isn't a staff meeting, he said. He signed it, too. This is family. He laid down a document, but he didn't lead with paper. He led with his hands. Chosen. If anything happens to me, you're guardians. If nothing happens to me, you're still ours. If you'll have us. Patricia reached for the table's edge like it was a rail on a boat. Mr. Bennett, she began, out of habit. William smiled, shook his head, and signed her name, Patricia. She began again. I have scrubbed rooms where voices aren't welcome. I don't know how to fit here. You already do, William said. Noah nodded so fast the room blurred. Jamal looked between the faces that had become a map of home and, for the first time, let himself imagine a future that didn't have to be survived. The drive was small, weightless in the hand, heavy as a planet in the heart. They didn't go to the office this time. They brought the screen to the couch where everybody fits badly, and that's the point. Sarah filled the room again. Not an apparition. A mother who had practiced love into a language her son could keep. She told a story with her hands about the day he was born, about the nurse who cried when he didn't startle at the metal tray, about the first time his tiny fingers tried to mimic hers. She said he had always been fluent in wonder. William watched her face. He had not let himself do this before because he thought grief would drown him. It didn't. It baptized him into a life that included the ache instead of circling it like a drain. Noah turned, eyes bright with salt. He signed a question that looked like a verdict. Why did you close the door? William didn't sit up straighter. He didn't armor. He signed the ugliest truth with hands that trembled. I was scared. Of my own tears. Of yours. Of doing it wrong. He reached for the apology again, and this time, he didn't need Jamal to guide him. I am sorry. I hurt you trying not to hurt you. Noah stared a heartbeat too long. Then he stepped forward and pressed his ear to his father's chest, listening to the drum that had kept him alive before either of them knew how to count. He pulled back and signed, smaller than before, heavier, learn me. William nodded like a vow. I'm learning. Night fell. The house went soft around the edges. Somewhere, dishes were washed by a woman who had memorized the new landscape of the day and tucked away her fear like a note in a pocket, not gone, but held. Sometime after midnight, a cry cut the dark. Noah sat up, hands thrashing water. The dream had teeth. William was there before the echo finished, kneeling, not waking him with noise he couldn't hear, but with sign he could see even half asleep. You're safe. You're here. I am here. Noah's hands slowed. He blinked awake and saw his father's face already speaking. The terror drained on a tide going out. He lifted his hands. You can talk. Practice, William signed. Jamal helps. He smiled, all edges soft. I should have learned sooner. I will not stop. At breakfast, William didn't ask his sister for permission to live differently. He told her, plainly, that kindness was the threshold and everyone had to cross it. She left with her heels hard against stone. The door didn't slam. It sighed. Later that week, William stood on a small stage at Noah's new school, the one with hallways loud with both kinds of laughter. He signed and spoke to a room of parents and kids who had risked mispronouncing hope. We're starting classes here, he said. No tuition. Families first. We have a lot to learn. Jamal nudged him from the wings. Eyebrows, he signed, teasing. Questions need eyebrows. William raised them, and the room broke into hands waving high. Applause you can see. Back home, Noah climbed onto the couch between Patricia and Jamal. He took both their hands, placed them on his knees as ballast, and signed a sentence like opening a window. Brother. Mother. Father. Family. Sometimes the climax isn't noise. It's a quiet room where everyone finally understands the same sentence. Time didn't heal everything. It taught them how to carry it. There were days the house was a storm shelter. Days the memory videos stayed off and they cooked recipes Sarah had written in the margins of a notebook, laughing when William misread pinch as punch and assaulted the salt. There were mornings when the kitchen table lessons turned into arguments about homework and the ethics of bedtime. Family didn't make their lives neat. It made them honest. Patricia shed uniforms like old skin. She learned the routes to schools and clinics, the names of teachers and nurses who listened with their eyes. She cried once in the pantry where no one could see, then came out and let them see anyway. When William asked if she would manage the house, she answered, I already do, and they both laughed because it was true in a new way. Jamal made mistakes. He corrected them in public, which is a kind of courage that can't be taught. He visited Maya and argued with her about linguistics like siblings do. He told Noah bad jokes in sign that worked better because timing lives in wrists. He taught workshops, then forgot to eat, then learned to eat. He got detention for talking with his hands in math class, and the principal apologized after a very calm conversation that was not calm. Noah learned that some bullies grow up and some don't, and both are survivable when you have a place to go where your language is the default. He started a sign club that met under the oldest oak at school. He collected handshakes like stamps, designed one that was theirs alone, a brush, a tap, a twist, a secret grin. Years passed the way years do, with milestones that turned into stories you tell new people when you want them to understand who you are. Birthdays with candles blown out by hands. Report cards stuck to fridges next to appointment cards for therapy nobody pretended they didn't need. The first time William signed angry and didn't break anything with it. The first time Patricia signed tired and someone else got the laundry. The Bennett Foundation grew from a promise at a kitchen table to a building with a playground where silence was not a lack but a landscape. Classes filled up until they ran them in parking lots and parks and church basements. A banner on the wall read, "Every child deserves to be heard." The period was Noah's idea. Full stop. High school came, and with its stages and gowns and speeches. Jamal lifted his hands and voice at graduation and said the kind of sentence that lives in people: we aren't rescued by experts. We're reached by each other. Noah stood in the audience, taller than the boy on the carpet, and signed, "Mine." The crowd laughed and cried at once because joy and grief are cousins. Years later, a clinic door opened under a sign with two names, Dr. Jamal Coleman, Dr. Noah Bennett. They hung their degrees side by side like family photos. They built rooms that held sound and quiet equally. Parents arrived hollow-eyed and left with a map in their pocket. Children came in with fists and left with hands that could tell stories. On a slow afternoon, between appointments, they sat on the clinic steps and did their handshake. A nurse rolled her eyes and smiled. Patricia texted a picture of a new plant thriving in a sunny kitchen. William sent a video of a ridiculous hat. The group chat was called Family, no quotation marks required. A boy and his brother watched the street. "You ever think about that first day?" Noah signed. Jamal nodded. "I think about how you taught me to be brave by asking for help." Noah's hands hovered, then landed. "You taught me to be loud without sound." They sat there a while, letting the city breathe around them. Somewhere a siren, somewhere a laugh, somewhere a prayer said with hands. The world kept being the world. Inside, a new family waited, faces tight with the particular fear of not being understood. Jamal stood. Noah stood. They opened the door. Listening isn't quiet, Jamal thought. It's attention. It's courage. It's work. And it is love. On the wall, the banner didn't whisper. It declared, "Every child deserves to be heard." Noah flicked the light on. Jamal lifted his hands. The revolution continued, small, daily, fluent. Home followed them into the room.